Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker Training Course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced. I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free unlocked CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button, and that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com. Today is day 4 of our ongoing course on basically building your own custom CRM in 30 days, taking a CRM and adapting it for your organization. And basically, this is a conversation for beginning FileMaker developers or people who are maybe evaluating the FileMaker platform. A lot of folks here are power users, so if you have questions along the way, I highly recommend that you give us those questions. So let's talk about the upcoming broadcast schedule. So obviously, the next 5 days are going to be all about basically this 30-day training, right? So today is a conversation on a couple different topics. We have them for each day this week. So let's cover that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to FileMaker real quick and take a look at it on here. It's just better this way because this has the latest information that is updated. So today's conversation is about starter solutions, a little bit about layout objects on the layout, and then user interface and user experience is kind of this overarching conversations. Areas that we need to touch on. We're not going to deep dive on any one of the items per se today. And then tomorrow is first day on scripting, right? So we do an introduction on scripting one day. Then Wednesday is going to be an introduction to relationships. That's over here, right? That'll be Calvin and Margaret working on that. And then I will be back covering, so relationships will be 3 days this week because really we have the beginning basics of relationships on Wednesday. The next day, we're going to cover this idea called anchor buoy. It's a way of structuring your relationships so they make sense to you. There's a logical process for them as opposed to just doing whatever you want and making a giant mess, which is what a lot of people do. So the idea is to kind of have some controlled chaos, some controlled mayhem, some sort of organization to it. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Friday this week will be a many-to-many relationship conversation. We've covered this before, every 6, 8, 12 months, something like that. Many-to-many relationships, there's the book way of explaining it, and then there's Richard's way of explaining it. And my way of explaining it is not for technical programmer types. Mine is for business people. So I'm going to explain to you how to understand all this stuff from a business standpoint. You're not a programmer. The vast majority of people come to the FileMaker platform are not some sort of like hardcore Oracle programmers like Ruben, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be normal humans. So I use the word normal in quotes. But what you're going to see fundamentally in this training is a couple things. And that is we're going to train you on basic things like with a brand new blank FileMaker file. So when we start talking about relationships and things like that, we're going to start with a blank file. We're not going to start with the free CRM. We have the free CRM. We recommend that you start with that because it's a lot easier to kind of cobble and hack that together than writing from scratch. If you're a brand new FileMaker person, you try to write a CRM from scratch, you're going to spend a lot of time on it and it'll be very frustrating. And unless it's a full-time job for you, you're learning it. It's kind of almost a little bit overwhelming. Once you have some experience with FileMaker, say 6 months or a year of working with it part-time or something, then it's kind of you have a little bit of more of an idea of what building a CRM is. And so the reason we pre-built it The reason why we give it away, we got tired of reinventing the wheel. As you see commercials, sometimes we got cavemen running around going, "Hey, here's a wheel." It was some funny commercial not too long ago, and they're like, "Nah, that'll never take off. No one's going to need a wheel, right?" So we got tired of reinventing the wheel. It was yelled. I was yelled. My company was started in 1990. I go back 30 some odd years, and by 2008, which had been 18 years later, I was tired of people saying, "Richard, quit inventing the wheel." And so we'll dive into that conversation today. And we built the wheel and gave it away for free, and it's still there today. So welcome to day 4 of your training. So today is on layout objects and kind of cleaning up that conversation, layout objects, etc. And then moving on to the starter solutions, right? And once again, the starter solutions here are fundamentally the ones that we started with in 2008, and you'll see kind of the lineage of what happened with them. And then we can look at the current starter solutions if you want, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, they haven't changed. So we will talk about the starter solutions that come with FileMaker, and the number that comes with FileMaker varies anywhere from 5 or 6 to about 30, depending on what release of FileMaker you have. But the starter solutions fundamentally are always super limited. So we'll get into that. So real quick, let's dive into the day 4 CRM. You could reorganize these chunks differently, but what we're trying to do is not overwhelm people with too much tech stuff on one day. Today's a great day of some tech stuff followed by some higher altitude planning and thought process. Tomorrow will be more tech. But not how to be an expert script writer tomorrow. Once again, all this training is for beginners. So if you're an advanced developer like Scott Kane or something, or Brutterman the cat, there's this cat that meow meow and it types on the keyboard. That's Brutterman. FM Bob, a bunch of you, Ken, hot air balloon Ken. As slow as Ken flies a hot air balloon, he's a much faster FileMaker developer. He probably doesn't need this, but I'm glad you folks are here. Seriously, I'm glad you are. So if you have questions along the way, let me know. The topics as the days go on, as we get towards the next 30 days, they'll get more complicated, but they'll never really be Nick level. The goal is to us to give a brand new developer, a brand new power user, a positive first time experience of what we're trying to do. So this is the conversation for today a little bit. I'm going to move this over here. We're going to talk about layout objects. And so the idea with layout object, I can go through this. Margaret, if you can pop this up, I don't know if anywhere, if one of you wants to pop it up, I guess keep looking at it. I'm going to go over to FileMaker, and I'm going to start with a brand new blank file, just so we have something to play with, right? So it'll be called Untitled on the desktop. Once again, it creates some fields for us. I don't particularly care at the moment. And so there's some important things to learn about the FileMaker platform. We have our browse mode and layout mode. We've talked about this before. I'm going to make myself very much a sliver of a sliver. So you see me waving my head around here and stuff. And so what you have over here, this is layout mode once again, browse mode right here. So it's keyboard shortcut. So my left hand will be Command or Control B. It's going to be Command on the Mac and Control on Windows, Command or Control B for browse mode, Command or Control L for layout mode, and you'll end up going back and forth. Okay, does that make sense? So over here on the left side, we have these, we call them water wings, but they're really panes that inflate or deflate. So if you go to browse mode, they kind of go away. You need a little whooshing sound, right? And then if you ever had a kid who was trying, like an 8-year-old trying to teach them how to swim, a lot of times they put the inflatable things on your arms. They stick out the side to keep you afloat so the kid doesn't drown, right? Your child doesn't drown, which is always kind of a good thing. Cuts back on paperwork when they stay alive, which is good. So anyway, so if you go to layout mode, you can make the little inflated sound, right? And they inflate for you, which is great. And they give you all the tools, expose the tools. So on the left side, we have fields and objects that are on the screen. On the right side, you have 4 panes that are basically how to customize things. So basically, at the end of the day, we have fields that we can drag on the screen. If you click over here, fields, these are the fields that were auto-created. So these are fields that are auto-created. If you want to create a new field, I'm old school, so I typically go back into define fields, but you can do it right here. You can say add field called hot air balloon. I always spell balloon wrong. I don't know if that's correct, but it should be close. So there's hot air balloon, okay? When we go to browse mode, the part we see is this part right here. There are body parts over here on the left side. And so what's important to understand about this is that if you're building the solution like this and you're in layout mode, do you have a header part, a footer part? The different body parts are important to understand whether you have a browse mode or a form mode. So basically, at the end of the day, you need a browse or a form. Now, if I pop open a CRM over here, I have like where's our light CRM? Here's our light one right here. I'm gonna just pop this open. I'll use the local version. Thank you. It opens up. I go to like a contact record here. And so for some simplicity, I'm not going to get into this right now. I'm going to just take, for the simplicity, I don't want to have to explain this. I'm going to delete this out of here. So there we go. So this is your contact solution right here. We are in a form mode. A form is one record is on screen at one time. If you go to the controls up here at the top, I can zoom in on Zoom. On Zoom, you won't see my zooming. I'm sorry about that. But you got the form view right there. You got a list view. You got a table view. Table view should be called the Ryan Rosenberg view. It was his idea in marketing because he didn't use FileMaker. He wanted it to look like Excel. So you could press the button right there. It's actually not enabled. We need to edit layout and turn these on, which would be really great. So I'm in layout mode. I go to layout setup right here. And I think have views right here, and you can turn these on, right? So these are the modes that you can turn on for users. If you don't turn these on, the users can't switch between them, which might or might not be good in your situation. Most of the time you don't want users really switching this because you build a layout for a form view or you build a layout for a list view. So let's look at that real quick. So as you can see right here, this one looks like one body is a giant body part over here. This is essentially one record on screen at one time. If you want to flip the little Rolodex control at the top to flip the records up at the top in browse mode, you can flip between the records. If I jump over to a list view, alternatively, mouse, contacts, list view right here. Notice how they're nice and organized. I come over here, see how it's kind of like looks kind of like listy, but the list is not very long, but the body part right here, you see right here, is very small, right? That's because it'll be repeated down the page. So if I go back to browse mode real quick, we're going to see that we have 4 records here. So this is a list view. And tomorrow we're going to talk about building these very first buttons right here. Okay, so it's a button that says go to list view, go to the detail view. We use the word detail view. It's synonymous with form view. Even in Amazon, if you go to Amazon, you do a search, right? And you do a search for t-shirt, right? And then the first thing you're going to get is a bunch of, basically you're going to get a list view. And the list view might have really fat lists on it or really narrow lists on it. And there might be a variation of fat lists at one area and narrow lists at another area because they want to sponsor this shirt is the most amazing shirt. Plus that company paid Amazon for placement so you would see it. So you might have a fatter list view there, and then it narrows down. It's a list view. Then you click on the item, you drill down into a form view. Makes sense? Pretty straightforward stuff. So you have the form view, the list view. If you allow the user to switch, you can't allow them to switch in these modes, right? So I'm in a screen that's a form screen right now. I push the list view. Nothing really happens except if you scroll down. Now I scroll down. There's Bob. Here's Sally. So we've kind of turned this giant ugly, the screen into this ugly list. So once again, probably not a good idea to turn this on. Leave it in form view, which means that it will only show the record on screen. The body will only show the record on screen that you're on. So if I click back right here, it's going to show us the one record we're on. We want to flip records, we do something like that. Or we come up with our own button scheme, different buttons, right? Makes sense? So questions, other questions along the way, chat.
About this specifically, people is asking if you'll show how to adjust a free CRM, which is kind of, I think.
We're going to go through all that. I don't know. We'll pick a day where we do all that, but I could show you how to delete things in FileMaker. Okay, so would you like to know how to delete things in FileMaker? I just did a little bit ago, right? You go to layout mode and you delete it. There's my finger. Click on it, hit the delete key. Ta-da! Now, what we're trying to train you to do is understand what other pieces you can put in there and how you would put in there. For example, we're talking about objects on a layout. Now, remember we talked about a blank layout was over here, very basic. I defined a field. It puts the field up over here. A lot of times the field will be dropped at the bottom. So if you have a bunch of stuff here, it'll drop a new field at the bottom, or it might not show it to you at all. Depends on how it's set, doesn't matter, but you can grab fields over here and drag them on if you want. So if we were over here in starting point and you said, well, I don't like first name, I want to have Balloon's name in there because we're kin and we only care about the pilot's first name and their balloon name. The balloons each balloon has a name. It's like the ones where you see cartoon animals and they cut the hot air balloon in a certain way. Looks like a giant pig or a whatever. and they inflate it full of hot air, whatever they do, and it floats around, right? So you could say, well, I need a new balloon name. So you could come, so if we're going to customize Start CRM, over here are all the fields that drive the screen here. All these fields may or may not be on the screen at this time. They're part of this table. Tables and relationships, we'll talk about that a little bit more on Wednesday, but these are the fields that are part of the contacts table. So for example, cell phone 2, blah, blah, blah. It makes sense that those would belong to a person, a contact, right? So let's say we're going to add forget the balloon. That's not a good example. Let's say we want the pilot's their pilot license number. So Ken Tooley is doing the hot air balloon stuff. You actually have to have a pilot's license to fly a hot air balloon. I did not know that. It was something new that I learned, because I just thought you inflated a hot air balloon and then let it go, and then you jumped in, and wherever it went is where you went, right? But apparently it's slightly more sophisticated than that. So we'll say, let's see, what do we say? So their pilot license number. So this is a text field. Remember we talked about defining the fields over with file, manage, database. So this field, this list here is exactly the same as this list over here. You can add or edit this list here. You can add or edit the list over here. I'm sure there's a limitation of what this will and won't do for you. I always normally come over here and manage things over here directly, but I just define that. So it would be pilot license. If it's sorted by field name, you see right there, sorted by field name, it'd be P for pilot license, PIL, there it is right there, right? So it's already waiting for us. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to find pilot license. Now, in this case, it stuck it on the layout for me. If it wasn't on the layout for me already, I just hit the delete key. I could come up here to pilot's license, and I could drag it on the screen. So PI right there. So you drag it on here. So then you're like, well, Richard, how do you customize it? Okay, well, what you could do is you could put the field here, but notice the field has a little bit of different styling to it. Like this one's rounded and this one's square, right? Things like that. You go to browse mode, it kind of works. And oh, you need to change the label, right? So go back to layout mode, use my keyboard shortcut, my left hand, Command and Control L, back to B. Click on this once, and then start typing, right? So you type pilot license, but then it messes it up. So with your mouse, you can drag it around, or you can click on it once and then use your cursor keys for pixel placement. So I'm moving my left cursor key, right cursor key, right, left, up, down. These auto little guides will come on to kind of help you kind of where it's supposed to be. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the vertical lines of those P's there, trying to get those lined up. Okay, does that make sense? Now it's still a little different. So another thing you could do is I'm going to leave that label there. I'm going to delete the field. I could take this field. You could duplicate it. So Command D with your left hand, Command or Control D, you could duplicate it. It says, hey, what field would you actually like? And I would like my pilot field, right? So we come back over here, find the pilot's license, do it that way. Now it's got that same styling. Notice the little rounded field and the text and all this kind of stuff. It's got that same styling. Alternatively, if you're a FileMaker person, you've been around, like some of the folks here, what you do is you're going to hold down your Option key. I guess it's the Alt key on Windows, if we want to confirm that, Margaret, if someone says what that is. But you hold on the Option key on the Mac. I'm holding it out with my left finger. Right now, I'm going to click and drag this. And as I drag it, that makes my duplication for me. So I don't have to hit Command D and then grab it. I just grab it, hold Option key. It's like one of the most things I use all the time as a developer, just constantly taking something, duplicating it over, and keeping it. And Margaret, did someone tell you if it was the Alt key? Is that the correct one?
I have not seen that, but I think it's correct that it's Alt, because looking at my own Windows computer, it says Alt.
Cool. So you go back to browse mode to test it. So you've got a little bit of a line around that, some styling around that. But the number is here, so it could be A5413121FFF. Crash the balloon, right? So that could be your license number, right? And I spelled balloon wrong there. That one, I'll fix that. So how do you fix that? You see like a kind of a line around it. So back to layout mode, Command and Control L, right? Over here. By the way, if you did something you didn't like, you could press Command Z, it will undo it. So going to browse mode and back to layout mode, it remembers what your undos will do. Okay, that was really bad English. What you did previously, your undo will do it. So your undo will undo your do that you did, but you didn't mean to do it.
Do you want to just show that one? Because
Okay, so I'm going to hit Command Z right now. It'll undo what I did previously before I undid my undo. So I moved, that was where it was before. Command Z again. The label was there. It threw a label in for me, but I didn't need it. I deleted it. So then I can go, so it has like 50 levels of undo or something like that. It's pretty neat. If I close FileMaker, reopen it, it wipes the undos out. So don't close FileMaker if you want to undo your do that you did previously that you didn't mean to do. Okay.
also apparently is control, click, and drag on PC. So
control, it's control, not options, control. Okay, there we go. It's clicking, yeah, we're clicking and dragging, but it's instead of option, click and drag, it's control, click and drag. So I'm gonna delete that again, or I could undo it, Command Z, and then I could, oh no, I've kind of messed myself up. So I'm gonna use, I click on it once, I'm using my cursor keys over here. We still have this problem right here with this, it's got a label, so I click on that once. So way it works on the right side is if you click on something, it gives you all the attributes of that stuff. It's all the attributes for that object that you've selected, right? So you've got 4 tabs along here. The essential, it's kind of funny. In my limited opinion, the most important tabs start on the right and they work their way to the left, but they are kind of logically grouped. This is like, I consider this essential oxygen right here. This is where you're going to select the field. If you want to do that, you can talk about a placeholder text, like it could put some placeholder. So let's just go through this. We'll have fun with this real quick, and then we'll pivot. But display data from, this is a field label right here. It can't display any data, so that doesn't really apply. If you go to, this is data. If you click over and move the mouse, data. This is called appearance. This is styles. We're not going to really get into cascading themes and styles and things like that. This is position. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So right here, I click on appearance. Once again, I'm selected on that label. And what you see down here on the right, it's, remember that like line it had? So it had a line on the left and a line on the right. I can turn those off. And there's no lines now. Or I could turn the lines all the way on, all the way around it, right? In a little box, right? So now there's, if I click off of it, you can see it. There's a box all the way around, right? So that's kind of not good. So click on it, turn the lines off. So this is the appearance tab over here. That's pretty great. If I want to click on the pilot license right number right here and change, I could say, like people tend to do this sometimes, like in the modern Mac OS or Apple operating systems, and you see people copy Apple. What they'll do is they'll get rid of the label here, and they'll come over here, and they will put, and notice where it says display data from, this tells you where it's getting the data from, placeholder text when the field is empty, pilot license, and it'll typically, you can change the coloring of it, but it'll be kind of a lighter color gray, etc., things like that. And so what happens if I go back to browse mode right here, there's a data in here, so the label's not there. If I go to another record where nothing has been put in, backwards, it says pilot's license. So as soon as I click in there and I type something, it gets rid of that label. Now, here's the problem, and I have to explain this to my artistic guy, Nick, who hopefully is not here spying on me. Is Nick here? I want to make sure he's not here.
Nick is not here.
Good. You had to explain this to people. Nick's the kind of guy that would put, you'd have phone 1, phone 2, cell phone, fax phone, and you have 3 or 4 or 5 different phones because people still use phone numbers, right? And what's funny about that is that it's like, okay, it says home phone, cell phone, work phone, fax phone, whatever. And as long as they're empty, it makes perfect sense. But if you have 555-1212 or whatever you have in there, now there's no label there. And you know it's probably a phone number, right? If I click on here, at least in the United States, if in the United States they format stuff like this, right? This is how it's formatted in the United States. But I guess you could have like if you're overseas, you'd have a 01, something like that, right? And then you'd be like, so you know this is a phone, but you don't know which phone it is, right? And if it's 1 in the morning and you want to leave the guy a voicemail, you don't want to wake him up because maybe he or she answers her cell phone at midnight or 1 in the morning. You're going to piss this person off. So there's no label here. So getting rid of the labels, just a side note, be thoughtful about that. You have to tell, yeah, it's a phone number, but which one? So I'm not big on getting rid of the labels unless it's really obvious and it makes sense and it would be useful, right? But 4 or 5 similar things. Dates, another one. Date it's due. Date it might be delivered. A past due date. Days in the future, right? You're asking for trouble. So anyway, so that's layout mode. That's how you click on a field. Over here you have control styles, edit box, drop down, things like this. We can spend some more time on this a little bit. in the future. What I want to do is talk about the objects. The objects you put on the screen are up here at the top. Once again, I pre-built the CRM, but to see it kind of in its like the native conditions of the wild computer programmer. We see him in the herd, out in the field. It's like National Geographic. We're spying on the computer programmer in their natural habitat, right? This is the blank habitat where you've been. It's like the Matrix movies where they boot you up the first thing you're in a white room. You're in the construct. You're in this white room and you're disoriented. Okay, that's what this is. And so as I drag things on here, you're not distracted. So you've obviously got a text object you can put on here. That would be a field label. Okay. Once again, you can grab it, move it around. These are called handles right here. You can decide that you're going to left justify, right justify. You can do all sorts of placement of this right here. So you got text objects, you got some basic drawing lines, you got some box objects here. This is a field, right? And now these are called control styles. So here's the important thing about fields. The other day we talked about text field, number fields, date fields, a container field. You can have a text field that's on the screen and it can auto enter or not. And if it auto enters or not, basically you're playing with potentially like right here, that's a text field, but it has a pop-up on top of it. That's called a control style. So in the world of FileMaker, they're called control styles. So if I have hot air balloon, hang on. Oh, okay, I'm back to that control. Here I am with a hot air balloon, it's a field. The control style would be under data. It's the essential one right here on the right. Edit box is the default. That's just a box you type into, nothing happens. You have a drop-down list. Very straightforward. If you're a power user, you'll see this. I don't even have to explain it hardly. Pop-up menu, a checkboxes, some checkbox you can check off, radio buttons, drop-down calendar, which is almost completely worthless, and a conceal edit box, which actually is pretty great. So say that this was a password over here, or some sort of sensitive, maybe it's like someone's. You're in a medical database, and so you're going to put your social security number. This is as I type here, there are real numbers in here. So what if I do is if I make a copy, that's a control style. So how do I make a copy? Command D, or I can do the option or command or control, click and drag. So it's the same field. I say great, but I can change its control style. Woo! How about we do it again? I'm going to drag and drop it down here. Do it again. Same field, control style with a drop down menus and pop-up lists are similar but different. I'll show you that one. So, and I'll make sure it has a, let's see, allow entry of other values, allow editing of the value list. Okay, great. Control, and we have to put a control. So when you have a value list or radio button or something like this, you have to establish a value list, a list of things that go with it. So if the control, so you'll say new for the value list, pretty straightforward. We'll say, so it's hot. It's a balloon with it's a pilot license, right? So it's kind of a, you wouldn't really use that here. It'd be more like a category, like what kind of category is the balloon? It's a big balloon, small balloon, fluffy balloon, slow balloon, fast balloon. But let's just pretend like there's values here. So you could derive the values out of another field, another table somewhere else. Or when you're a brand new FileMaker person, you're just going to put them in a custom list. You're going to say, it was good, it was bad, it was creepy, or it was Michael Scott, all right? So we can pick that one in there too. So those are the options right there. We say, okay, it's on this one. So we have, if you click on this one, we got conceal edit, conceal box, like a security one. We've got a text edit box, and then we have a kind of a pop-down menu. So I'm gonna go back to browse mode, Command or Control B with my left hand. So this is the same field. So if I select good right here, it forces good into that field, and this text right here, if you click on it, is actually good, but you can't see it. So if I go over here and I type Michael, can't see it, space, Scott, and then what happens as soon as I say this, or I click out, it will essentially commit the data, save it to the database. These will update. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to click out of a field. We'll talk about committing and saving, but when you click out of a field, essentially from your practical perspective, it saves it to the hard drive. There's no saving of the file. Save it as a Word file, save as, do this sort of thing. Once it's running, the database is running FileMaker, it saves for you automatically. So I'm going to click out. And so here it's a text field, right? Here it's a pop-up. Because I typed Michael Scott here and it was already a value in here, it checks it. If I put Michael Smith in here, Michael Smith is not part of a pop-up list, so it doesn't even show up as a selected item, right? It shows Michael Smith, and you can't select Michael Smith, right? Now you could say edit right here, and we could add more things in here. We could say Ken Tooley, right? We could say FM Bob, Gadidi. You could send all you people. You could add to the list here. So taking some time and playing with value lists is a very valuable skill set. It's a very valuable skill set to be able to do that. We'll spend some more time with control styles. I just want to kind of give you little bits, not overwhelm you, let you play with it. So let's take a step back and let's talk about Starter Solutions. So this, as you see right here, is the current Starter Solution. Obviously, there's nothing special here. When you go and download the Starter Solution, this is what we call FMSP 2022. It's a light one, so it's a little more simplified, and you can clearly modify it or edit it, okay? That being said, if there are other Starter Solutions. When you download the Starter Solutions, if you download them, you're going to get all of them from FileMaker 2 on. Starting point 1 and starting point 2 are very, very similar. Starting point 1 was for FileMaker 10. Starting point 2 was FileMaker 11, which was kind of more or less very similar product. And so these are FP7 files over here, right? So they go back to FP7. You can't open them in the current modern FileMaker without a conversion. It'll do a conversion for you. So it'll show you what it looks like. So before we do that, let's go back to the original Starter Solutions. So these are Starter Solutions. At the time, my company was contracted to update them. There was very little updates. Claris had a big, long list of them. And I came back, and it was Rick Kalman down there at the time, who's still down there. And I said, Rick, this would be really great if you combine these things together, because they're kind of, what you have is, if I open these up, I'm just going to drag and drop all of them into FileMaker, and it's going to do a conversion. And I'm going to say convert all of them. So it's converting them. And so it opens them all up. So over here, you can see, now the interface is a little different, a little bit older. But this is a form view, and then there could be a list view, and they always come with no records in them, right? And so here's it's very basic, very straightforward. This is contact management. It doesn't talk to invoicing or to-do lists or PO. So each one of these are separate files with, if you look at the relational structure of them, there's no connection. So they're kind of a CRM without the pieces talking to each other, right? They're really kind of right? And I told them, I said, we should glue these together. And they're like, yeah, that's a bridge too far, too much. We don't, basically, I suggested it. I knew they would say no, because Claris is a kind of a bureaucratic machine, and it's in forward motion. And by the time the developers hear what Claris is doing, Claris has already decided to do it, right? For the most part. Very rarely do they come to you early anymore and say, hey, we're thinking about this. What do you think? Most times they decide what they're going to do, and then they just spray it at the development community, and we get to absorb it, good or bad, right? Which is fine. So that's what happened here. And so they keep, and even to this day, they make Starter Solutions that look more modern than this, but they're just as disconnected. So if you come here to relationships, there's a relationship between the contacts here and a note. So they have a contact with a note, and that's the only really valid thing that's useful in here. The rest of this is all window dressing, right? And you're like, wow, that's pretty limited. Yeah, it's pretty limited. So what we did is, if you see this interface here, we went over here to starting point, and we said, let's glue all these together and make our own. So this is starting point 1.0. I'm gonna double click it. Oh, it's looking for FileMaker 7, which will never work on this computer. I'm gonna drag and drop it onto 19. It's gonna convert the file, which it does pretty straightforward. Converting from FP7 to FMP12 is a pretty straightforward, easy process. But what we did is we had all these little single Starter Solutions. So what we did is, if you look at contacts here, and you look over this contacts or wherever it went, where's contacts? Did I get rid of, nope, there's contacts. So here's this contact solution. There's this one. You can see a lot of inspiration. We weren't trying to redo the interface. We were trying to make it cohesive. So you could have some notes in here. You could have a related invoice. You could have a related project. So we tied these together, right? That was the whole idea. You have accounts, you got invoices, which was basically like their PO module. And so we glued them all together with Anchor Buoy. So if you go to File, manage database. So that's where all this comes from. And so this is organized. A lot of people make a big spider mess out of this, but this is anchor buoy. Actually, the fastest design technique you can use currently, according to Hansa, who's done the performance testing on it. So, so we took all these separate things that were, because here's what happens when a brand new FileMaker person gets into the solution, they will go into the current version of FileMaker. So let's go ahead and do that. These are the ones from 2008. Okay, so if you look at contacts, right, here's 2008. Let's go into FileMaker. Let's say File, Create New. Let's go to Contacts. So here's Contacts. Create on the desktop. So this is the modern version of Contacts. This is the one from 2008. Okay, and this is like more modern and more whatever, right? More amazing. But at the end of the day, it has the same limitations. And so all they did is that they update and modernize the user interface, but the user experience is still the same. Brand new people get this, they build on it, and about a week after they're building on it, they realize that it's so limited that they want to scream, okay? And in some ways, FM Starting Point is a little bit too sophisticated, and that's where we talk about just going in there and deleting the things out of there or removing them off a screen that you don't need. It's always easier to, like, I don't want, we only want contacts and projects. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select that. I'm going to select invoices, calendar. I'm going to get rid of expenses. I like notes, and then I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to get rid of that stuff. So now we have a project with this and this and this and this and this. And so this is how we start, right? We're going to start with these items here. We're going to reorganize them, come up with whatever we want to do. Get rid of stuff over here, back to browse mode. Now you go to contacts, but then you still have some things up here. You need to trim some of this out. But it's a whole lot easier to delete that stuff than to try to build it from scratch. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about, right? Because we've done it. So someone's saying, well, how do I get help with this? Okay, so with RCC's team, with my team specifically, there's two ways of doing this. You can hire a developer to help you, or you can get a coach to do it. Basically, coach to help you is going to teach you how to do it and build it with you at the same time. It's kind of a special program that we have. It's a question someone just asked me here. I'm going to answer the question because, I mean, I am doing this for free, so I would like a little bit of a paid commercial for it. So this program is sponsored by Richard Carlton, right? So, so you can get coaches to help you out. Basically, they're half-off coaches. These are FileMaker developers with about 3 years of experience. They're not senior engineers. They're not as expensive as a full-blown engineer. They're about half off. And they will sit there and work with you and doing the kinds of stuff we're doing here today, but you get to direct the conversation. Today, I'm directing it because I have probably 100 people here, and I'm kind of going through a generic stack, right? Does that make sense? Right? So the idea is for us to go through it, and by the end you'll have the knowledge, but if you want to kind of cut around and get just what you want, then you need your own kind of coach. If you go to fmcoaches.com, you can see a little bit of information here about that, right? So yeah, so the starter solutions are there. They are limited. You can start with them. Feel free to take them and play with them and kind of do one-offs with them. But if you want more of a cohesive solution, you probably, and if you want to do it rapidly, a little bit of coaching time is really valuable. I mean, I learned all this stuff on my own. I didn't pay anyone to teach me, but I had to beat my head against the wall for a little while. But the upside is that by me learning the FileMaker the platform, I turned it into a 33-year career. And it's great because we help businesses get over humps they can't get there. There's competitors to FileMaker that swear that they can do all this stuff. At the end of the day, they really can't. They find a little narrow niche that they can do really great, like they might have a really great starter solution, but then to customize it, maybe you have to learn SQL, which is, as you're going to see from tomorrow's scripting, our scripting in FileMaker, people say, oh, it's proprietary, it's horrible. No, it's actually very simple to understand, it's very flexible, and it's been in continuous updates for 30 years. Better and better and better and better, as opposed to some companies that have been around for 2 or 3 years, right? Which, and remember, this is Apple. We're talking about Apple, right? So they're not really going to go anywhere tomorrow. If I was working with some of these companies, I would be concerned about them dead on arrival, right? Especially in a recession or something like that. You don't need some company going, well, we decided to kill our products and you're out of business and all your investment's gone. I mean, just from the standpoint of not wanting to build my house on the sand, right? I'll just make it like when you build a house and get a building permit for building a house, you don't get to just put it on the beach, right? Because the tide comes in and washes it out. You want to be on a reliable platform with a company that kicks, right? All these are starting points that you can get. So that was starting point 1. Then you see starting point 3, which I think will probably look very similar, but there were some upgrades and overhauls to it. It's a little different. It's a little different. Then we went through a design. So it'll slide us into a little bit of our last conversation. I'm going to go ahead and quit real quick out of FileMaker because I got too much open. I'm going to open starting point 4. 468 was the last one we had there. I'm going to double click it and see what happens. It's opening in Claris Pro this time. Not that it really matters. The interface changed here. So this is a Nick Hunter interface overhaul. Okay, I believe the case in this. Yeah, so this is the standard interface we've had since this was Nick's first job working for RCC after he left Apple. So Nick, the designer for this, worked at Apple doing design work. Okay, then he decided he wanted to work at Apple, and yeah, it's a long story. Artists are a handful. For those of you wondering how artists work, like legit artists, they take like not just someone who's creative. A lot of you are creative and you like to do design stuff, but I'm talking about someone who's like an artist. And if you tell them that you don't like their art or maybe something's wrong with it, they're offended, right? So you got to be, with artists, you got to be like, yeah, maybe that's not the best design for you got to be you have to like, I got to be really careful how you handle that. So this is the first design. So this design was consistent through starting point 4, 5, 6, 7, even an 8. I think it's largely, but we improved it. We improved the performance. So here's, so we incorporated some additional stuff, but at the end of the day, it kind of looks the same, right? But it gets better every time. And then was 2022, we have this neomorphism design style. So any of these you can use. They're all free. They're all just fine. So if you like this one better, but you don't like blue, you want to change it to green or something, right? I took one the other day. I took this one and I hijacked it and turned it into green for myself. So all these are at your beck and disposal, totally free. These are the starter solutions that are starting copies of FM Starting Point. Once again, as a reminder, if you want to go and check out FM Starting Point, you go to here, you pop a new window, you say type fmstartingpoint.com, hit the return key. This page comes up, and you just hit this button right here. This is the one download, and in the download will be all those links, all of them since Starting Point 2, right? And because 1 and 2 are very, very similar. You'll get all of them, so you can pick the one you want. You don't have to pick. No peer pressure to use a neomorphism, right? A lot of people are like, oh, that's amazing. It's whatever works for you. So let's talk about what works for you. What works for you? Let's talk about this conversation. So I'm going to pivot here, and this will set us up for as we approach this is your captain speaking. We'll be landing in 15 minutes. Please return your chairs to the upright position. Let's talk about, I put this obligatory paragraph in here because I think it's important for some people, but there was this concept that they had DevCon presentations on 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, and it was like user-centered design. And I at the time I didn't get it, because for all of you there, you're either building a solution for yourself, or you're the user and you know what you need, or you're hired. Either you're on staff, you're like Kyle Williams works at Victoria's Secret, and when Victoria's Secret comes to him and says, we need a design for a solution, Kyle, he's an in-house developer. He works there. He sees people walking through there all the time, and he builds a solution for them. So he's a paid salary person. He works for them internally. It's an in-house developer. I'm an outhouse developer. I'm an outside developer, outsourced developer, and so I'm like one of those hired guns. He's a data mercenary, right? You pay him and he comes in and he does whatever. And so in the world of FileMaker, half of you are probably external, half of you are probably in-house working. It doesn't matter. The user-centered design is basically the concept that if you're going to build a solution for your users, you might want to ask them what the hell they need before you build it for them. I mean that very seriously. That's what this is. And in the curriculum, I was like, they had like 5 pages on this topic. I normally always ask my users, listen, when I'm in the room, I always tell people, if I'm the smartest person in the room, you all are in deep trouble, okay? I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. When I go with a customer, and even if you're in-house, like Kyle Williams goes to the marketing department and says, hey, we're going to have the new line of lingerie, thong, bikini, whatever things from Victoria's Secret. And Kyle Kyle, you don't have to model them for us, but we want you to build a database to track this stuff. Well, Kyle, A, will be very excited to work on that project, but B, he will be listening to the people in marketing because they know more about marketing underwear than he does, right? And so he would listen to that. I know Kyle, right? And he would listen to them and he would take notes and do this sort of thing. That's what user-centered design is. If you see references to it, I put it in here because Claris is like to talk about this. Well, you should review what they want and talk to them what they want and see what they want. I'm like, duh, right? All right, so user interface design, the two big ones, user interface design, user experience design.
Real quick before you get into this, because there's like a back question. Once you delete a feature object from the layout, can you add it back just by restoring the object?
You could Command Z, but if you quit FileMaker, reopen it, then that Command Z is gone. You're undo. So there's no feature in FileMaker called restore object, okay? So you could go to a backup copy of it. So look, real quick, for those of you who asked about that, I'm gonna pivot back and then I'm gonna come back to this. Well, let's talk about user interface design, user experience, okay? And we can tie all these together. That's how good I am. I'm gonna tie all these together for you on one pass. Everyone, all right, everyone buckle up, here we go. So we're in starting point and we come over here and I'm gonna get rid of myself. I'll make myself very small, Richard. How about tiny? I want to do tiny, Richard. All right, so browse mode, command and control layout mode. All right, so who asked the question?
It is an Edward Whittle.
Edward. Okay, so Edward, let's talk about this. So if I click here, like this section over here, it looks like a list view, and I'm talking about this is a data form. This is a list view over here. This right here looks like a list view. It's kind of not really a list view. So let's pretend that for sake of, for confusion, I don't want you to see this. So I could come over here and kind of select, if you select, it's whatever you touch. If I hold down the command key or control key, it's everything that's actually fully enclosed in this box. So notice that if I don't hold anything, it touches that, but notice those things on the top are not up here. They're not enclosed. I just touched them. Anything I touch is like, it's like I have COVID. If I touch these, they're all going to get COVID too, right? I've inflicted my disease on everyone, right? But if you hold the control or command key down, it's whatever is fully inside. So I'm touching them, but they won't turn on unless they're fully, see that, fully inside. Two modes of selection, FileMaker, very cool. So I can come over here. It was Ed, right?
It was Ed, yes.
Yeah, all right. I can hit the delete key, okay? It's gone. Now the problem is that I can go back to browse mode, I can undo it, right? But I have to decide this before I kind of shut my computer off and leave for the day or whatever happens. And so what I'm inclined to do, my hot tip for you, and on these panes here, you can actually still hide the left and right panes, the inflatable sides. You can click on this hide or show. But what you can do is you can come over here, have a larger screen, and hide things off the side. This is like a junk drawer over here. These are the things on the side. We frequently call them side nuggets and things like that. These are things on the side that are there in case you need them again someday. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm just going to click and hold with my mouse and go ding. Okay. If you don't hear that sound, it didn't work. Just kidding. So you go back to browse mode, it's gone. If you want to restore it, as dumb as this is, it's like you're on stage. You're on stage and you have some more dancers off stage. You want these dancers back on stage? You ever seen a ballet production from behind the scenes? My daughter did this. Oh my God. Oh my God, you got 10 people on stage and you got 100 people run around the sides. You grab this over here, drag it back on or move it around, reactivate it. It's easier just to put this stuff on the side. If it's on the side, FileMaker will generally ignore it. It won't work on it. It doesn't process it as a general rule. Therefore, there's no performance penalty really over here for you doing this. So you could say, well, this doesn't make sense and this doesn't make sense, and I want this section out of here gone and whatever, and you could group them together. You can take objects and group them. So I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to select these like that. I'm going to say arrange, group, boop, and they're in a group. And then on the left side, just for fun, I'm going to inflate my left pane back up. And I come over here, I click on my group, right? And I go to not fields, but objects. You go to objects, it says a group right there. You see that? I created a group, and these are the items that are in the group. Is that cool or what? So I can click, or I can hide the group. We talked about this the other day, hide the whole group. So this is hiding it just in layout mode, right? So there's a couple different kinds of hide. There's hiding it while you're in layout mode. If I go to browse mode right now, it's visible. If I go to layout mode, it's hiding it because generally there's something underneath it you need to get to. You can layer things together, right? If that makes sense. Sorry, I'm down here in a very little sliver. So say Richard's over here and you want to like have something on top of Richard or get underneath it, right? You could unhide it, right? And say this was on top of me, right? Let's just do that. You have a screenshot of Richard. Here's a screenshot of Richard. Okay. Second there, pop it up, drop it on here, bam. Okay, so there's a picture. So it's over here. If I go arrange, send to back, okay, and so you see this, you're like, oh, I need to work on Richard. But every time you click on Richard, you get something that's on top. So you grab this group here, you move it out of the way, but that would suck because if you move it, you lose the alignment. Maybe it was precisely aligned, right? So I'm going to put that like under there. I'm going to send it back, arrange, send it back again. Okay, there it is. So Richard's under there, right? Oh, so it's dropped me into the group there. That's fine. I'm gonna just move it with my cursor keys. That won't cause it. It thinks I'm trying to add it to the group, so it adds it to the group. So now it's over here, and that's interesting. See how that worked? That's a little behavior FileMaker. I always run into that. So I'm gonna Command Z. Remember on Z? There it is. Okay. So you can't see it. Browse mode. You can't see Richard. Where's Richard at? Layout mode. I need to work on Richard. So you select the group, hide it. So now we can work on Richard. Meanwhile, when we're in browse mode, you see how it actually would work and look, right? So that's hiding it that way. You can also show all with the eyeball there, grab the object, move it off the side, which is like your temporary storage area in case you want to restore it later. If you want to hide things conditionally on screen, that's a different day. We'll cover that in a different topics where you select an item over here, you show the right pane, right? You go to the data panel and you say hide the object when, and you put a little formula in there, right? And that's programmatically you hide things on screen. So understand that this is the user interface. The user interface is the organization, the style of the buttons. It's the neomorphism design style, right? This one's all been boogered up now. If I go to accounts, kind of what it looks like. You got invoices over here, go invoices over here. This is the interface. Now, if you put this in front of Fred or Sally at some company or Win at some company, and he or she goes through this, if they click on it and they can use it, as they use it, it helps them with their job, or maybe it doesn't help them. Maybe it's confusing. That's the experience. The user interface and user experience are totally different. Most of us kind of understand this. Just because it's pretty doesn't mean it works well. It might be pretty and totally suck. I've actually had that happen. In fact, that happened to me with Nick on a sample file he has. He built the sample file. It was beautiful. The UI was wonderful, but the user experience was hideous. And I mean bad. And so it was one of those like, okay, Nick, you have to understand the difference between user interface and user experience. And this is where you actually use something. You could even use something that's old and ugly, but if your experience is great, then maybe you're happy with that. Generally, though, where these two things meet is if you hire a new person and it looks reasonable, like you come over here and it looks, Ed works on it, he removes things, right, Ed? Or Dave adds or removes things, and it's kind of intuitive, it's beautiful, it doesn't look like a hideous disaster, right? Well, then that probably will that will be more likely to lead to a good user experience, but it's not a guaranteed thing, right? So understand that if it's hideously bad, the person has to figure out how to use it. They might be disenfranchised would be the word. They're working for you. They're going like, this is not the job I was expecting. This database looks like, right? If you ever have anyone compare your database to, that's not a good thing, okay? And so probably can't use that word on live TV, so I'm pretty sure it'll get censored out. But you don't want people to use creative adjectives and verbs to describe your solution. So if it looks nice, it might be easier for someone new to learn it, which gives them a good experience. And it's just basic stuff, right? Here, it looks great, but this app sucks, right? Once again, This broadcast is not in any way endorsed or supported by Claris International or Apple Incorporated. User discretion is advised. Right. So that's today. Tomorrow's going to be beginning scripts beginning once again. Yes. Questions?
Questions before they're kind of like a little off topic, so I was going to wait till the end.
We're at the end. Let's hit them.
Have you ever added a BOM file?
Oh, there we go. Is this the same person that's been emailing me online?
I have no idea.
Well, they would know if they are or they're not, right? So yes. I've done a build of material or kits. I did one for Bank of America 15 years ago. I think a couple managers have done them since then. Do I have a free one for you? No, I don't have a free one for you. So that for those of you who don't understand what a build of materials or a kit is that in starting point, for example, you have a product. Okay, well, if you had a fairly complex, these are okay. Well, this one right here is interesting. This could actually be a kit, something you would sell. So maybe this is the product you sell, but maybe you're also the manufacturer. So for you to manufacture this, these are metal brackets and a piece of wood. So it's 2 metal brackets, a piece of wood. So you could have a line items over here. It would say piece of wood, quantity 1, so-and-so size, and a product number. So there's another sub table, like a sub products table of elements of components. We call them bomb components, right? Not explosive bomb components. For those of you who like exciting TV shows and movies, these are the elements that make up the actual product. So the elements would be 1 board and 2 metal brackets. I think those metal brackets are probably identical. So it'd be 2 elements, quantity 1 on the board, quantity 2 on the metal brackets. And so that's how you manage, like, for example, if you assemble a car or an aircraft, there's about 20,000 parts in these things, right? And you have to manage all of that. And so can you do that in FileMaker? Absolutely. Is it something I give away for free to people? No, I don't, because my general experience is that everyone who does kits or bombs does them a little different. Right. For example, I had one gentleman who didn't want to spend any money, but he had a big pile of parts. And what he wanted to do is say, well, how many widgets can I make with these parts? And it would run a simulation of if you had so many parts, it would start counting the number you could build until you ran out of your limiting item. Say that you have 20 of these brackets, but 5 boards. Well, 20 brackets would give you 10 kits, but 5 boards only gives you 5 kits. And so your limiting element is that. So you would say, well, how many could I make with the product available, right? That's one thing. Had another company where they were assembling furniture from overseas. They would bring furniture parts from China where they're made like cheap chairs for Costco, things like that. And they had products that would be bought, had to be reserved, had to be in the warehouse on the shelf, and they were all kits. And they were building kits, and then the kits had various levels of storage in a depot, like in a warehouse, and where in the warehouse they were, etc. So it gets pretty involved. Can you do it in FileMaker? Absolutely. Do I have anything free on that? I have a sample file that I can show you, but it's not going to solve all your problems. It's not my sample file. I really can't give it away. But yeah, you see how this stuff works. It's pretty straightforward. For most people most people here, if we have 100 people here, I have 3 or 4 that care about kits or bombs, which is kind of a small subset. So next question.
There was a question about there being intermediate or advanced versions of FMSP.
Yeah, so if you go to the FMSP website, the more advanced version has a couple of adjustments to it for higher performance when you get like larger groups of users if you come over here to versions, there's a light version for each of our releases, a light version, standard version, kind of this enhanced version. Standard and enhanced are very similar, but standard is this has higher, it's got some performance things in it. We're not going to really get into super deep performance. If you're a brand new user and you're building a solution for, say, less than 30 people, you don't really have to worry about performance too much, okay? FileMaker, you could build it really badly and FileMaker will still be plenty fast enough. If you're a brand new FileMaker, if you're brand new to FileMaker and you want to build a solution for 100 people, you're probably going to build it and then probably have to go back and adjust some of it a little bit to make it run faster for 100 simultaneous users across the internet, right? Typically around 30 people, when you're a brand new person, and you have 30 people using the solution across the internet at the same time, you will start to see performance issues. We engineer starting point, especially standard version, to really be very performant. So what you have is in these versions of starting point over here, you'll see these ones that are called basic. You can download, you can see all these, but there's basic versions. The 22 version, neomorphism, is only the light one right now. We still have to kick out the standard and enhanced versions. Don't ask me when those are out. They're in progress, but it will be a while before they're done because we're working on them as we have spare time, because they're, once again, it's free stuff, right? So
okay, and then one
paid customer projects generally cut to the front of the line. So yes.
Yeah. One more question we had is people want to know if we were going to cover charts at some point in our 30 days stuff.
We could. Charts are kind of tricky. There's been a long ongoing conversation with a gentleman online who was asking how to build charts in FileMaker 17. So the charting engine that's part of FileMaker is kind of limited. It has issues. To do really great charts, you probably need a third-party charting tool, some sort of third-party charts. Charts built in the FileMaker just have got really serious limitations. Even from day one, Claris came out with these. Once again, it was a Me Too thing. Hey, how can we be serious? We don't have charts. And then they buy this library of charts that are pre-built. The problem is they're very, in FileMaker, we expect to be able to precisely customize like if I zoom in here, I can precisely customize every little, the pixel perfect placement of stuff. If I build a chart with built-in FileMaker charting, you don't get pixel perfect placement. If you don't like the way the chart looks, you're probably out of luck. And a lot of people are like, well, they're like, oh, this is great. Then their boss weeks later said, it'd be really great if you could do this and this and this and this, and you can't do it. So you end up going off and getting a third-party product like XM charts or something like that. I don't even know if they're in business anymore. Let me see. If I do XM charts, there you go. Says it's updated for FileMaker 5. So yeah, so their last update is from February. Yeah, so XM Charts is the most flexible charting plugin I've ever used. It's off the hook. I would either use this or FM Charts or Fusion Charts, not FM Charts. Fusion Charts is another one if you're interested in charts. And so this is not a beginner topic, okay, because you have to really understand data, columns of data, things like that. We're nowhere near that advanced along the way yet on this. There it is, Fusion Charts. This is the one. I've done projects with both of these. And this is based in kind of some JavaScript stuff. So I don't know. It's probably a little bit more hairy. So they have all sorts of charts here. I mean, we're talking really, and if you want to customize it, as long as you know JavaScript, but the idea of just drag and dropping stuff around is a little bit, yeah. Both these products are good. What I would recommend, as much as I like Christian Schmidt and 360 Works. 360 Works charts are very basic, but yeah, the built-in charting in FileMaker, unfortunately, is one of those things that just is. You just can't, you get into it, then you realize you can't get there at the end because someone will want something customized. You just can't do it, right? So that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, so you use Tableau for charts. That's a big check. I don't use it because I'm not going to write a check just to show you guys how. Someone the other day asked me how you do integration with IBM AS400 mainframes, and like, well, if I can only show you stuff that we've done, right? And if I don't use it myself, there's a little bit of a clue. But if I don't use it myself, there's probably a reason. Either it's super expensive and no one's hired me to do it, or it sucks or something, right? So if you see me doing stuff, it's because why I use FileMaker. It's awesome. Why do I not use other tools? Because maybe those tools are not as great, right? Why do I not use parts of FileMaker? Maybe parts of FileMaker are not great. I'm going to tell you what those are. I'm not a Claris employee. They don't send me a note and say, Richard, you can't say that. I'm sure they feel that way. A couple of times I've had demonstrating FileMaker server, and I have a graphic where flames are shooting out of the graphics, and I get an email from their marketing department saying, Apple marketing saying, Richard, our FileMaker servers don't catch fire. I said, well, it's kind of an analogy of it crashing, right?
Last question from Zoom. You mentioned Fox is one of your folders. I've used Fox Pro since it was created. Is there an easy way to convert Fox Pro programs and tables into FileMaker?
Fox was discontinued a long, long time ago. So convert, not that I'm aware of. I would I would take screenshots of the screens. I would make sure you take screenshots of screens and do a data dump, but then you're going to have to sit there and kind of restructure how if it's a CRM, you could probably find a way of kind of pouring it into in FM starting point or something. But yeah, there's no like magical converter. There's companies that say, hey, we're going to mail a magical converter for FileMaker. I've yet to actually see one that doesn't suck, right? One company said, hey, if you hate FileMaker, we'll convert it to this other thing which does Oracle, right? And of course, that company, I don't even think they're in business anymore. So if their product is so great, why are they not in business, right? So that's kind of one of those things. I mean, it could be a fluke. Maybe they're really great and they just had bad luck, but yeah. So I don't see a lot of converters, right? Like take access and convert it to FileMaker. That's always a manual process. With Fox, it's yeah. There's very few things that you can just straight convert. That's why you take wireframe screenshots. The thing with FileMaker is you can build stuff drag and drop really fast, especially if you get a coach to help you with that, like $75 or $80 hour coach or something like that. Just build it, right? Do it quick. But if you're looking for an automatic, because if you're still using Fox, you've been putting off this migration for a long time. Either you didn't have the money, you didn't want to spend the money, whatever. I'm not picking on you. I'm the same way. I mean, why spend the money if you don't need to? But sooner or later, if you're on really old tech, you're going to be orphaned on an island, like that Castaway Island with Tom Hanks, and he's a FedEx employee, and he's on this island. By the time he gets back, by the time he converts his Fox Pro file back to something usable, his wife's already declared him dead and moved on and married another dude, right? So how's that? So yeah, so you might want to like convert before your wife leaves you and marries another guy. That's a joke, sorry, but yes, you get the idea. But yeah, there's no easy conversions that I'm aware of. Because you could have something do a basic data conversion, but then is it really going to convert the layouts? Probably not, right? Is it really going to make it look nice and functional? Probably not. That's about it for today. Any other questions, Margaret? Are we good?
Nope, we think we are good. So
tomorrow's the beginning of scripts. We're going to start into scripts, the basics of scripts, and we'll have 3 days relationships. And then Monday the next week, we'll be kind of looping back to see where you folks are interested. If you have comments, besides give me free bomb stuff, right? Any comments besides that one, right? That's a joke, but shoot them to support RC Consulting. What are you interested in as part of this basic training, right? We will try to, even if you have questions, maybe I'll figure out I didn't cover something as well as I should have. And we're going to come back over and spend some more time on the inspector. This is called the inspector, but it's really a left pane and a right pane, and within each of the panes are multiple panels, right? Multiple panels, right? Cool. All right, that's it for today. We'll catch everyone tomorrow, beginning of scripts. See ya.